WAEO Radio, where you tune in to tune out.
Rahubat everyone, this is Sishat from Atlantis Awakes Publications. Thanks for joining in today on our episode on WAEO Radio. And today we have a special guest, Fenix and Eryz Rising, and they're live from Honduras. Rahubat, Fenix, and Eryz.
Rahubat fam.
Awesome. So yeah, we're going to do an exclusive interview with them today. You know, we're going to talk about the living in the tropics, living in Honduras, what it's like there. They're going to talk about some projects that they're working on, and we're going to also talk about spirituality, ascension, just a lot of great things that's going to uplift the people and open their minds. So yeah, Fenix and Eryz, do you want to give a little introduction about yourselves, your background, you know, like the projects you're working on, things like that?
Sure, no problem. I'm Fenix Rising. I came through from the United States, New York City, First Avenue, 105th Street, you know, what you would call Spanish Harlem. And so my parents, they were from Honduras, but they moved over to the United States, and I came up through there. And now I'm in Honduras as coming back home, as I would call it. And so we here and finding a way out of what people call the matrix, or what people will call Babylon, or a false reality that has been created. And so we back in nature, back in Honduras. And feel free to cut in and ask any other question if I miss something that you find pertinent.
Okay, no problem.
And so
yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So now yes, go ahead. So we in Honduras right now, and we have. Do you want me to go into the projects?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely go into that. I'm sure the audience would love to hear about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, while I was in Georgia, actually, because we moved to Georgia, and I am a Nuapu from the heart. And so I met Dr. Malachi a few times up on Tamaray, and he was speaking about planting your own crops. And so he said to go back home and plant your own crops. And so he was like, don't worry about it. He was like, I'll tell you this time I leave. I'll even come in your dream. You know, so that resonated with me. And at that time, I did not have any I didn't acquire any land at that time, and so, but it was very interesting because in Georgia, I was figuring out how can we do this in Georgia, and I was like, hey, I must be missing something. So actually, that was stamped in my subconscious mind, and I had a couple what you would call dreams within a dream, and so it has something to do with acquiring land, and so I went to Honduras on what was I called a vacation. And when I spoke to my father at the time, he told me that because they Garifunas, and I'm a Garifuna in Honduras by way of them, that I was able to acquire some property. And so that just fell out of the sky. And so from then on, I've been in. I'm talking about this is in 1997, 97 to 99, in that time span. And so that happened to fall out of laps. And so we've been planting crops in cleaning the land ever since. Of course, we ran into a lot of a block in that process, but we still here. I came in 97 as well to create the Right Knowledge Scrolls for Dr. Malachi Z. York and put them in Spanish. And this is I came down in 1994 and then came down in 1997 to print up the books in Spanish. And then we ran into the legal problems, and I just kind of been wandering from there, but still on the farm. And so here in Honduras, I had no urges really to go back to the United States, which I did a few times when I ran into a couple of roadblocks up here in Honduras, or brick walls, as I would call it. And so now we have projects here. We have more than 90 acres of agriculture property where we're planting crops. And so I found it very pertinent that we in any nation building, you should be able to have your source of your own food supply source without going to what people call the enemy, or people who do not care for our likes, and depending on them as our food supply source. And so I thought that was very important. No matter what nation you're building, you have to have your own food supply source. So I stood there. I'm still here on my post growing crops. And so we still here, and we still have several other projects. So now we open the doors because I realized that I couldn't do it by myself, or acquiring by yourself. You had no joy because you was by yourself. And you couldn't even enjoy it with anybody because there was no one there. And so I realized that it's a lot better when you have other parts of yourselves with you. And so I kind of opened up, and I'm opening up doors for those that are interested in growing their crops. And we have a whole city of Trujillo that, especially the Garifuna cultures that are that is in very need of assistance, and we can actually assist each other. And so they open up their doors to me as being a Garifuna, and they showed that there's a lot of land that we could use as working together as a community, and we can help each other out.
Definitely. And wow, that's great. Yeah, keep going if you have any more to add.
Okay, what would be the next question?
Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Oh, hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, we have Irie. Hold on, Irie. Like, hey, what do you mean? I'm gonna be doing a little translating for.
Okay.
Wait.
Hey. Hola, Reflexiones, ¿cómo están?
How are you, Reflections? How are you?
Mi nombre es Iris, la esposa de Fenix Eryz.
Iris is my mate, my wife, my confidant, my companion.
Eso, la pregunta es.
La pregunta es, estamos hablando de.
La introducción, ¿quién soy yo?
Sí.
Ok, yo tengo. Bueno, no tenía tanto conocimiento con respecto a lo que es a una alta conciencia.
She didn't have at first she didn't have a lot of information on what we calling a higher conscious or a higher conscious awareness.
Yo siempre he vivido en el trópico aún sin saber qué era o qué beneficio traía vivir en lo que es el trópico de Cáncer.
She was born and grew up here in Honduras in what's called the Tropics of Cancer, but she had no idea of really what it meant as in a conscious level.
Nosotros sabemos muy bien que esta información a nivel de los latinos es muy poca.
She said a lot of the information of what we call awakening or consciousness in the Latin community is very small.
Entonces, estamos escasos de recibir esta información.
Estamos en caso.
Escasos, o sea, pocos de recibir esta
There's
información.
very few of us that resonate with this information.
Anteriormente, hace un año aproximadamente,
It's been about a year approximately.
mi vida cambió radicalmente al momento de conocer lo que fue a Fenix Eryz y al grupo Melanation.
She said her conscious would change when she had met me and Melanation.
Eso, literalmente yo empecé a conocer, lo primero que yo conocí fue de astrología gracias a Fenix Eryz.
The first that she learned about was her astrological energies.
Y así fue como empezó en sí mi camino, porque Fenix me dio mi astrología y yo supe que en realidad esa persona era yo.
I had introduced her to a website called, it was a website on her astrological energy. She read it and it resonated with her, and she was impressed. How can her personality or character be in a website?
Desde ahí empecé a recibir diferentes tipos de información con respecto a un alto nivel de conciencia.
And from then, she started receiving information of what people call a higher consciousness.
Eso fue para mí un despertar. Desperté de toda la programación que sin saberlo estaba sometida.
And so from there, it was like awakening for her of what reality really is.
Y ahora ya llevamos un año en este camino y la verdad he cambiado mi manera de ser totalmente.
And now after a year, her whole mindset has changed a whole lot.
Check.
Finito. And period.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, so I guess we can move on to the next question, which will all tie into what you guys are talking about. Why do you advocate living in the tropics or close to the equator and the sun, and what are the benefits of living there?
I definitely advocate it because as being a student of Dr. Malachi C. York, he introduced us into nature and the four elements by him building what's called a Tamaray, the Moon Garage in Middle Georgia at the time. And he explained the four elements, which was fire, earth, air, and water. And it dawned that these are the four elements that's necessary for the body that's a superhuman computer that receives and interprets light or energy consciousness, and which your brain uses to make these interpretations, needs these four elements. If we trying to connect to our higher self, or what some people call it the higher self, some call it the oversoul, some call it your etheric parents, right? These are the elements that's required for the mind to make those interpretations or take consciousness, or the ether beings, which is your ancestors actually. And so these are the elements that's required, and you find these elements in abundance in the tropics of Cancer Capricorn. And that's where the sun rays, Ra's rays, is most profound at. And so it beams down on the equator. The equator is a tropical place, is where everything grows in abundance, or what you would call nature. And you'll find nature in abundance in the tropics. Up in the northern hemisphere, you have what we call the lowest. Some people call it the lower self. We call it the mutation of us that are less melanated, so they have less. They have less of what is. They have less ether, as we should say, in them to interpret what real reality is. So what they did was they built this whole society going against what we call nature. And so knowing that we connect to nature, naturally, we can't even connect to the earth because we have concrete, and that the water is being contaminated with fluoride, which slows up our body vibration or our mind's vibration to interpret reality or to connect back to what we would call our etheric parents. So they are waiting for us to raise in vibration so we could, or as a radio, you would tune up to a certain frequency where you could receive certain information or certain thoughts, or what as people call thought. And so in the northern hemisphere, it's where these rays, the sun's rays, is where you have UVA radiation. And so the etheric body, melanated beings require UVB radiation closer to the sun. As we move further away from the tropical area, we have certain mutation that takes place in our genes, in our DNA. And so that's what activates your genes, is your environment. So the further we move away from what we call the tropics, is the less signal we can receive from what we'll call our etheric parents, or what you would call your higher self or your oversoul. And so it's very important that we receive these elements. Not that we can't receive it in the northern hemisphere, because our ancestors built mounds and pyramids, as up in Chicago. You know, you still have mounds up there. You have Rock Eagle Mound in Eatonton, as Malachi Z. York showed us, that you had these certain places. You need to have Ruby Falls where you can go 200 meters, and they have certain crystals, onyxes, and so forth, where in the earth these grids connected us. However, we have those that goes against nature, that we've been brought up in the system, in the European mind frame, and it disconnects us from these grid systems, these signals, by altering our body's vibration by different methods, by GMO foods, by having us bathe in fluoride water, also by programming our subconscious mind with television and low vibrational music. So it's very difficult for us to get in tune at a certain capacity up in the northern hemisphere. So we usually go back what we consider a home for melanated beings, where we can receive Ra's rays.
Definitely.
Oh, I can go on.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, any information you have, please share.
Yeah. And so, as if most people are, I have to speak first of Dr. Malachi Z. York, because that's who opened up my eyes to what reality is. And I fell back asleep and got woken up again. But I'll get to that later. And so I receive most of the information. What I talk about is 99.99% Dr. Malachi Z. York. And probably that 1% other is probably something I forgot, and I probably moosed it. And so he explained how our etheric, what we call our etheric parents, you would call it consciousness, will come through at a certain constellation, which we moved into the Aquarius age, and that brought in the alignments of the planetary alignments of 2012. Actually, it was earlier than that. However, when consciousness beams through here with the planets being aligned, because you got to remember that everything that you're seeing outside of yourself, right, as a planetary, is happening inwardly. It's happening within you. So you're just projecting what's happening inside of you outward. So when you see these planets aligning, what you're seeing is your chakras aligning, allowing consciousness to come through in a much the way light bends, right, unprohibited. Because when they're not aligned, then you have energies bouncing off of each planet, or each chakra, as you would call it, which each chakra has a characteristic and a personality, or what you would call a deity. right? And so these energies come into the earth via the sun. The sun is a ether that comes through. It comes through uninhibited, allowing us to raise up in consciousness because we're rotating closer to the sun, which they call it a sun cycle. So we wasn't a moon cycle where the earth was rotating further away from the sun. So we receive less information, a less signal from the ether that we are, right? So you have ether that goes through the vacuum and the earth, the sun converts it. And so we have these solar flares, as they would call it, which is actually light beams or ether beams or light conscious. Y'all call it light ether. But I think I'm skipping questions here. But it's to that point where we being awakened. But you have what you call you have those that are in control or have us trapped in what people call the matrix, right? Because you have what you call the European mentality that realizes that this time will come, this time is here. And so they try to hold on to their power, right? By distracting us of what time we're really living in. And while we in the northern hemisphere, they're controlling our food supply. They have us in the terms of what you would call having your cells in a state of cannot communicate. And if you realize your whole body is made up of over 76 trillion cells that communicate. And so they have us in a state where we're moving into the sun cycle. And because of a lack of melanin due to the mutation that happened once we moved away or further away from the sun, if you study epigenetics, you'll realize that what reads your genes is your environment. And so your skin receives the information from your environment and sends signals, right, into your DNA on what genes should be read. And so when we don't have available to us, the genes starts reading the environment. It start activating because your body is very intelligent. So it actually starts activating genes that are conducive to that environment. And so you can have certain frame shifts that happen in your genes if they're not receiving the elements it needs, or if the cells are in a state of stress. So when we up in the northern hemisphere and we don't have trees that give us oxygen, right? And so you have certain your genes, you're breathing in carbon monoxide, or you're bathing in fluoride. And even when you go to the swimming pool, you're swimming in chlorine, which chlorine strips color, right? And knowing that we have pores, right? So you have what you call chlorine, and if you're bathing, the water that comes out your shower has fluoride, and so actually it goes into your pores, and it actually damages DNA and has what you call gene shifts or frame shifts. You could Google that up if you want more information on that. And so we have all these things going against, have subconsciously programming when we go to schools up in the northern hemisphere. And so we definitely up against a beast. And knowing the time that we're living in, and because we're in the sun cycle, now we realize that our melanin is being marketed. Melanin is being marketed. It's over $350 a gram. It's more important than any other mineral we have. Gold, silver, everything else. Your melanin is energy. We are being harvested because they're preparing us for this sun cycle where they can't survive if they don't have melanin. They call it chaga, right? However they get chaga is melanin, where they're taking it from trees, up in the northern hemisphere, but it's not enough for them. And so they realize that without this molecule, this melanin, as you can give different names to it: serotonin, melatonin. It's all melanin. And so they're realizing for them to survive the sun cycle, they need this. They need this molecule. So actually, what gives them wealth is us. What keeps their society going is us. Is the melanated being. And so, knowing that we're in this day and time. Knowing that we in this day and time, that is a certain reality that we're not getting to, because we've been distracted by false information, and so we want to deal with the facts. And nobody brought the facts more than Dr. Malachi Z. York. Here's a being that was put away without any factual evidence, just on hearsay. And they just letting us know that's a way on anybody coming up with hearsay and evidence is not needed. This is what they send. This is the message they're sending us. And when it all boils down to, we don't have to do nothing but lead a system. We do not have to take arms. We don't even have to protest. We just have to lead. The sun is the justice, because if you can't in the sun cycle, if you can't live in harmony with nature, the sun will remove you. If we're not eating food from nature, photosynthesis, which is energy from the sun, or it grows from the earth. If we start to eat other DNA from other animals, if you study epigenetics, you realize that when you eat animals, even if you cook it, right, the microorganism still gets through, and it still gets to your ribosomes. And what you're doing is you're taking that thoughts of that animal is being played out into your mind's interpretation. I call it invasion of the body snatchers, because you have microorganisms, right, or that's trying. So when you start eating animals that have blood animals, right, you start eating other things with other DNA, those microorganisms want to survive. So when you eat them, it becomes alien in your body. So you have an alien. When they're talking about aliens, you eat an organism, right, that is not supposed to be inside your body. So once they in your petri dish, they're trying to survive. So what they do is they hijack, right? They jump into the ATP, right? They start controlling the food supply source. And so you have cells operating outside of what they're supposed to do. Just like in our reality in Babylon, right? We go to school, and so while we go to school, they're programming us, right, on how to think, manifest their reality. Because you manifest whatever you put in your mind. Your subconscious mind doesn't care whether it's good or bad. It just takes in information and it attracts that to you. So once we start putting 20 years of information in our minds, and then your mind will play that out, it would attract that. So we keep their societies going, right? Because they already know how to program our minds. They put us in school system, and then they feed us foods that's low vibration, that change our vibrations down to acidic levels is a pH level at 0, if I'm right. And when your body's at an acidic pH level, you have microorganisms from other animals, because that's what we've been trained how to eat, like our lower selves, who taught us how to eat their food, right? And so our body vibrates on a low vibration where these organisms can thrive. In an acidic body, you have very harmful organisms, parasites that thrive and causes other cell tape. And so that causes what we call dis-ease. And what causes the body to mutate even more, what causes the body to mutate more is actually fear. Actually, they put us into a situation where you know what, we got to pay these bills. You know what, I got 3 children, I got to put food on the table. You know what, I might the stress of losing your job, the stress of paying your bills. What happens when a body is under stress? Cells stop communicating because your body produces adrenaline. Adrenaline is the fight or flight. So what you have is you have most of your immune system running to the surface of the skin, to the arms and the legs. You have no immune system fighting what you're putting in your mouth, in your stomach. That's where most of your immune system hangs out, is around the stomach to fight bacteria and other alien stuff that you put in our bodies because of the poor choices of food that we eat. Because that's how we've been trained to think what's good for us. That milk from another animal is good for us, which is blood and pus from an animal that actually milk is made to feed its young. And however, we probably the only being on a planet that goes to another organism to sustain ourselves by their milk. And so you have parasites, an abundance of parasites from this organism on your blood vessels. If you study Genesis, you would see how during a cell split, how those parasites could affect those cells. And so it's a lot that we have. We were behind the 8 ball, as they call it, but not anymore. We waking up, and we have to give them back their way, and we have to do our own stuff.
Exactly.
And so in the tropics, man, as long as we have our own source of food, we're not, you can't do no revolution without your own source of food. Because if we say you're the enemy and we fighting an enemy and he's giving us our food supply, you know, what kind of fight is that? So we don't even have to fight. All we got to do is leave. And that's what we did. We left. And I've been in Honduras we was in Brooklyn, man, and you know, there's several people, Jay Willie. There's a few people that know how long we've been on this journey. There's some people just waking up. People getting this information from a third source. They scour the internet and they get this information probably watered down, and they don't even realize that it came from Dr. Malachi Z. York. He wrote every book. He wrote every subject, right? And anything you talk about when it comes down to conscious awareness, anything you talk about, he wrote a book on it. And some people are getting this information via internet through third party, and they actually had no clue. But if they do a research and a study, it's going to take it back to the source. There's going to be no way you're going to have to run into his information one way or another. She had a prototype of a community and how a community works. And from then you can see what works and what don't work. Even though we could take that as a prototype of how we could actually live for, of, and by each other. And so if we can produce our own food in a tropical climate, where the 4 elements are available, where how our mind works, then that's a plus. And of course, all of that works with a certain diet, because your body generates electricity, or is going to be generating ether or consciousness. And so,
Phoenix,
yes, if you have any, I mean, I could go on, you know.
I know. I mean, this actually leads to my next question. I don't mean to cut off your wisdom, lots of powerful affirmation and information, but I was going to ask, living in the tropics, what's your like main diet and what is the benefits of a plant-based lifestyle?
Right now, how the Earth is moving closer to the sun, or contracting, as some people will call it, and by receiving these ether rays, right? Your body is a supercomputer that operates with electricity, positive and negative charges, like lightning, thunder. When hot and cold air meet, electricity works by being conducive. It wants to flow. So when we eat in fruits and food that grows from the earth via photosynthesis, is the process of receives energy from the sun, and through the xylem, it pulls up water and minerals from the earth, 4 elements, right, and oxygen. And so your body becomes electromagnetically charged. And so when you pulling in this ether, because I'm not sure if you ever came across one of Malachi's book called The Science of Healing, right? He explains a lot of that information in that book. And if you was one who was to exercise it, or how would you say, practice it in your life, then you realize that you charging up your being with ether. And so that ether has to flow. And so it speeds up a vibration. And you would want to be grounded when this happens. You have to ground your nervous system or your being to the earth, because any excess electricity that you build up or any excess ion gets grounded by Mother Earth. And it keeps you balanced. Even when you ground, it allows cells to reproduce uninhibited by what would be called an acidic body, where you have a lot of blockages. So diet is very important. You really can't tell. You could show people, how does that say? You could show people where to look, but you can't tell them what to see, and you can tell people, you could give them the facts. That's all we could do, is give you the fact. It's up to you to apply it to your life. Tell people what to eat, and you're a bad person because you still haven't gotten to this level or that level of eating. Everybody is on a different vibration, and hopefully they all trying to head to a place where they bettering their minds or healing their minds. And that's one of the importance of having a healthy diet, which which diet is definitely essential, and we want to put more alkaline based foods into our system, because alkaline, a lot of harmful bacteria and parasites and viruses cannot thrive in a alkaline body. They thrive in an acidic body. Acidic is blood-based food that you eat. Animals, eggs, chicken, cows. Sugar is a big detriment to health because of candida and processed foods. Exactly. And so that's vital to a diet when you trying to raise your body vibration, so you can connect with your etheric parents or ancestors, as you would call it.
Yeah, definitely. So
or higher self for those that.
So what in the tropics? What do you guys usually eat? Like, what would be like a day, like a meal within your day, like a typical meal?
It depends on what season, right? Because a lot of the fruits are seasonal. Like right now, it's raining. I'm eating more rice and beans, right? Because I can't find that many mangoes, right? And so, in those 2 months, I will eat more foods based on Earth that comes from the Earth, and plus my astrological energy, right? A little Earth in it, right? So I could make up for Earth during those times where it's rain, where it's rainy season. And so in doing this time, your body will talk to you. It'll be like, hey,
Oh, can you speak? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but can you speak up a little bit? It's kind of being muffled.
It depends on what season. What season we in, because right now it's rainy season. So I eat more earth foods, more food that grows from the earth. I eat more rice and beans. However, you have some people that they're already evolved to where they just eat fruits. And so I'm more balanced. I keep it balanced. However, if it grows through the process of photosynthesis and you could balance out with fruits, and then that's good for you. That'll work for you. Some people's bodies are different. They have different blood types and so forth. However, we do know that an alkaline-based diet is very helpful. It's healthy.
Okay. Thank you so much. So right now we're going to take a little 5-minute break. And then we're going to continue part 2. So whoever's tuning in right now, just go to our speaker account on our main page, and you'll see the part 2 pop up in about 5 minutes or even less than that. And yeah, thank you so much again, Fenix and Eryz, for tuning in with us. Obviously we're going to continue more, but great affirmation so far. Really powerful messages, and I'm learning a lot. I'm sure the audience is learning a lot as well. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back.
You got it.